Quiz 1.1 Notes. All right, we're going to be subtracting these two polynomials. In order to do that, you're going to leave the front the same. You don't change the front when you subtract things. You just leave those as is. But then what's going to happen is you are going to subtract each of these. So you're going to subtract this, you're going to subtract this, and you're going to subtract this. And when you subtract, you add the opposite. So we're going to subtract 5x squared because this right here was a positive 5x squared and you're minusing 5x squared, which is kind of like add the opposite. Okay, we're also going to be adding 3x. Now why adding this 3x? Well, again, remember you're minusing a negative, which means a plus, add. And then lastly this 2, you're going to minus this positive 2, which is a minus 2. So basically what you're going to do is you're just going to change the sign of each of these. See how I just changed the signs? Yeah, you change the signs because when you minus, you add the opposite. Next step is just to combine like terms. We start with the highest type, which is the x squareds. When you combine those, they're gone. All right, next you go to x's, so that would be right here. There's nothing to combine with that, so it's just 3x. And then we're going to take care of the numbers last of all, the ones without any x's, and when you combine those, you will get negative 11. And that is the answer to this subtraction of polynomials. All right, we're going to multiply these two polynomials, a binomial times a trinomial. There are different ways of doing it. I'm going to use this little boxy thing. It's just something I use to kind of help organize thoughts for a lot of students. And what we do is I'm going to make a 2 by 3 box. The reason I'm making this 2 by 3 box is I have two terms, which is the 3x minus 1, and I have this 3-term trinomial I put right here, 4x squared minus 2x plus 5. So I put a 2-term by a 3-term. And then I'm just going to multiply this one by one, each side, kind of like a box. They call it a generic rectangle. You're just going to multiply this times this, this times this, this times this goes here, and so forth. You will see. So for the first thing, when I multiply these two, well, that would give me a 12x cubed, because x times x squared is x cubed. All right, then negative 1 times 4x squared, well, that would be negative 4x squared. All right, now we're going to go at 3x times this would be, what would that be? That would be negative 6x times x is x squared. All right, how about negative 1 times negative 2x? A negative times a negative is a positive, so hopefully you can see that as positive 2x. And then a 3x times 5, hopefully you can see that would be a 15x. And then a negative 1 times a 5, that would be our negative 5. Okay, next. We have these 6 terms. We have to combine like terms. So we start with the highest power, which is this one, and it has nothing to combine with. So the x cubes are going to go first. So I have 12x cubed. Next, we go to the x squareds, and you have an x squared here and an x squared here. When you combine those, you'll get negative 10x squared. Next, we look for the x's, combine those. So we have x's right here. Combine those, that would be 17x. And lastly, you have this negative 5 all by itself, so we'll tack that in at the end. And this would be the product, which means multiply, of these two polynomials. Now, very common, if these are in standard form, very common the diagonals are like terms. It just kind of happens. But in the end, you always want to write your answer in standard form with the highest degree and work your way down. And this is the answer. Now you could do this with kind of like a foiling method where you multiply 3x times this, 3x times this, and 3x times this. That would give you these three. And then you multiply negative 1 times this, negative 1 times this, and negative 1 times this, would give you these three. And then you combine like terms. I just like the box because it keeps it all nice and neat. All right, for this particular problem, we have this term, and then we're going to minus 3 times both of these terms. So watch what happens. Let's first just leave the front. Let's just write that as is. Don't change anything. So we still have the 7x squared plus 4x. But what you got to realize here is we're going to distribute this negative 3 times both pieces. So firstly, negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. And then negative 3 times negative 4x squared is positive 12x squared. So again, we are just going to multiply this as a negative 3 times this and a negative 3 times this, and there it is. And now all the parentheses are gone. We're just going to combine like terms. So our last step is to combine like terms. Start with the highest power, which would be these two. When we combine those, we get 19x squared. And then we have this one right here, which would be positive 4x. And then we have this last piece would be negative 21. So that would be the answer to this particular problem.